Forget the clean, engineers build, infantry fights story. In the Red Army, fortifications were often made by whoever was still alive, with whatever was within reach. Orders demanded standardized tools and strict accountability. Reality was mud, shattered buildings, and shortages that didn't care about paperwork. Men borrowed, stole, scavenged, and captured what worked, then hid it when officers walked by. Some of these tools saved lives. Some got men punished, and some failed at the worst moment. These are the 7 banned field fortification tools the Red Army secretly used in World War II. Number 7. German folding spades. A banned tool from the enemy, yet a lifesaver for many. The Red Army had its own entrenching tools, issued through supply channels and supposed to be accounted for like any other piece of equipment. Captured gear was officially suspect: unreliable supply, odd patterns, and a paperwork headache. On paper, you dug with what you were issued, and you turned in what you captured. Stalingrad didn't reward paperwork. In the 62nd Army's sector in late 1942, sappers and riflemen grabbed German folding spades off prisoners, dead, or abandoned kit because they rode smaller on the belt and opened fast when you had seconds. That mattered in the rubble, where a shallow scrape behind a brick pile could be the difference between a near miss and shrapnel in your ribs. When it worked, it bought instant cover and faster trench extension under fire, exactly the kind of micro advantage that kept positions connected. When it backfired, it wasn't mechanical. It was command discipline. In documented practice, unauthorized captured kit could be confiscated, and the man carrying it could be treated as careless with property or suspected of looting. Number 6. Civilian axes and saws. Civil tools turned military necessity. Soviet engineer doctrine wanted planned fortification, designated tools, issued picks and shovels, and regulated distribution of timber and fasteners. You weren't supposed to wander into a village and solve logistics with an axe. Rear area rules cared about theft, discipline, and keeping civilians from turning hostile. At Kursk in summer 1943, the front's reality was speed. Defensive lines had to appear before German armor arrived. Units digging in around the salient under fronts like 1st Ukrainian Front as the situation shifted often used civilian axes and saws pulled from nearby houses, barns, and workshops. They cut firing steps, shaped logs for revetments, and built overhead cover fast enough to matter. When it went well, a squad with a saw could roof a slit trench in an hour instead of a day, reducing casualties from fragments and airbursts. When it went bad, military police or local authorities could demand the tools back, or officers could confiscate them as unauthorized property, leaving men half-finished in exposed positions. Number 5. Captured wire cutters. Enemies' tools that breached their own defenses. Red Army assault doctrine treated wire as an engineer problem. Lanes cut by sappers, marked, then pushed through under control. Non-standard tools were discouraged because they broke the system: different jaw shapes, different techniques, and no guarantee of replacement. In theory, every breach was planned. In theory. At Kursk, formations including 3rd Guards Tank Army depended on momentum. When infantry and sappers found German wire belts in the dark, captured German wire cutters became the quiet shortcut. They were stronger than some worn Soviet patterns and could snip thick strands without the loud twisting and sawing that drew fire. Men carried them because a single clean gap could keep an assault from bunching up. The upside is easy to measure. Faster breaches during night movement, fewer minutes silhouetted in front of a position. The downside was human. In confused nighttime operations, unfamiliar cutters and unfamiliar signals sometimes meant the wrong lane, the wrong squad following, and accidental friendly fire when units collided. If you're crossing wire at night, do you trust standardized lanes or the tool in your own hand? Number 4. Improvised pry bars. Bending the rules with bent metal. Urban fighting demanded controlled entry. Soviet regulations wanted approved breaching equipment issued to engineer and sapper elements, with accountability for metal tools and explosive stores. The bureaucracy assumed a supply chain that could keep up. Cities like Stalingrad made that assumption expensive. Inside the shattered buildings along the Volga in late 1942, sapper battalions improvised. Pry bars were hammered out of rebar, rail scraps, and twisted steel pulled from ruins. They were used to lift floorboards, peel doors from frames, and probe suspicious boards before a boot stepped down. In an environment thick with tripwires and grenades rigged to hinges, that probing wasn't cautious, it was rational. When the bar held, it prevented the simplest booby traps from doing their job, and it let small teams open routes without firing a shot. When it failed physically. Improvised steel could bend or snap at the worst moment, throwing the man forward onto the very doorway he was trying not to touch, or forcing a loud, repeated effort that advertised his position to the room ahead. Before we move on, if you had to build or breach under fire, which matters more? A tool that's officially approved, or one that's simply in your pocket and works? Tell us your pick below. And subscribe because the top 3 get even more improvised and more dangerous. Number 3. Unauthorized demolition tools. The fastest door is a missing wall, and that could be a crime. Soviet procedure treated explosives like currency. Demolition blocks, fuses, detonators, everything was issued to sappers, logged, guarded, and signed back in. Rifle units weren't supposed to acquire engineer stores, and unauthorized blasting was supposed to be punished as indiscipline, not praised as initiative. But in cities and fortified villages, the geometry of fire made doors suicidal. So men looked for shortcuts. In street fighting from 1942 onward, assault groups sometimes carried satchel charges built from engineer explosives, captured German charges, or simply found TNT blocks with a length of safety fuse and a crimped detonator. The goal was crude but logical: open a new entry point through a wall, collapse a firing niche, or drop debris into a basement position without spending 10 minutes in a doorway. When it worked, you got instant access and fewer casualties in the entry team because the defender's aim point disappeared. When it failed in 2 ways: premature detonations from bad fusing, and command consequences when missing stores were discovered and someone had to answer for them. Number 2. Improvised trench periscopes. Seeing without showing your face sounds simple until it isn't. Red Army field manuals understood observation as a survival skill, but the official solution wasn't for every rifleman. Proper optical devices were centralized, and a trench was supposed to be laid out with designated observers, loopholes, and covered firing positions, not a forest of improvised gadgets poking up above the parapet. In static stretches of the front, men made their own anyway. A basic trench periscope could be 2 small mirrors scavenged from a wrecked vehicle, a house, or a German kit bag, set at angles in a wooden box or even nailed to a plank. Some used polished metal when glass wasn't available. You lifted it a few centimeters above the lip and got a slice of the world movement in no man's land, a muzzle flash, a wire party crawling in. When it worked, it reduced the steady drip of head wounds from casual peeking and let a squad leader read the ground before moving. When it backfired, the exposed periscope became a target. Shots shattered mirrors, and a man staring down the tube could get cut by fragments or give away the exact bay he was hiding in. Number 1. Unissued fortification materials. The line held with what wasn't on any inventory sheet. Officially, fortifications were supposed to be built from issued timber, standardized wire, sandbags, and engineer stores delivered through channels that could be tracked. Scavenging was discouraged because it broke accountability and could interfere with civilian recovery or rear area security. A correct position was meant to look like doctrine. At the front, doctrine was a sketch. Men packed parapets with anything dense: bricks from ruined walls, stove parts, scrap steel, rails, even sections of bed frames. In forests and villages, they used doors as overhead cover, fence posts as revetment stakes, and corrugated sheet metal as splinter protection. In winter, frozen earth and packed snow became material, not scenery shaped into walls, then reinforced with whatever could keep it from slumping. When it worked, it turned a shallow scrape into something that could absorb fragments and stop small arms fire, buying time until real engineer support arrived. When it failed structurally. Improvised roofs collapsed under blast, bricks spalled into lethal chips, and scavenged metal sometimes drew fire because it rang when struck, advertising a position's exact edge. Across these tools, the pattern is the same. Institutions want legibility, approved kits, clean logs, predictable methods. Combat produces the opposite. Men solve problems with whatever their hands can steal back from chaos, then live with the trade. A little more protection, a little more risk, and sometimes a punishment that arrives after the shells stop. If you want World War II history without simplification or mythology, subscribe. We'll keep following the small decisions, materials, tools, and improvisations that shaped what units could actually do when doctrine ran out.